In this video, I'm going to teach you why you want to live in a place with an HOA if you're going to live in Mexico. I know there's great disdain for HOAs, homeowners associations in the US, and I'm right there with you. Like, their rules can be super annoying. Like, you can only paint your house one of these 5 colors of gray. Or you have the HOA administrators who get all power hungry and are on you for every little thing. It can be super annoying. Plus the additional cost every month, depending on the neighborhood, you might be looking at between $100 and $1,000 a month. But in Mexico, on the other hand, there's a lot of other considerations. And I think if you're going to live in Mexico, you're going to want to be in a place that has an HOA or a homeowners association. Just like in the US, an HOA here has a monthly fee, but it's typically cheaper than in the US. For example, on the low end, you're looking at about $25 a month, and then on the really high end, you're looking at maybe $300 a month, but usually it's going to be $100 a month or less. And also, like in the US, depending on the community, it will have different amenities available to you. Maybe you have a pool, maybe you have a gym, maybe you have some common areas, a kid's playground, something like that. It can vary a lot. And by the way, here in Mexico, when you have to pay the HOA fee, or what they call the mantenimiento fee, typically you're going to be inside of a gated community or in an apartment building. Those are your 2 main places where you're going to find that monthly HOA fee. But one huge reason why I'd want to live in a place that has an HOA in Mexico is the greatly reduced noise. Mexico is much, much louder than living in the US. If you're not living in a gated community, you're going to have vendors and people coming up and down the street all day long, from early in the morning to pretty late in the evening. And they'll have their megaphones blaring with whatever it is they have to sell. And now a lot of people enjoy these sounds in Mexico, but this is one of the biggest reasons that expats leave Mexico. They just can't handle the constant noise all day long. And being in a gated community is going to allow you to have much more peace and quiet. Now, you can always leave the community and go into one of those other places that has the noise and the vendors and whatnot, but your noise levels are going to be greatly reduced living in that gated community, but not just because of the vendors, but also because of zoning laws. In a lot of places around Mexico, residential and commercial are not separated. So, for example, in the US, you'll have residential areas and then you'll have commercial areas where all the businesses are. However, in Mexico, many times you'll have a house, and then right next to the house, you'll have a tire shop or a machine shop or some other place, some other business that's making a lot of noise. That's very, very frequent. And even if you don't have one, when you move in, it's quite possible that someone could open up one next door to you. Now, that's not to say it can happen everywhere, because there are many neighborhoods that do have zoning laws around Mexico, but there are many that don't. And another reason your noise levels are going to be reduced living in a gated community is that inside of these communities, they have regulations that you can't have loud parties late at night or be playing loud music past 10 or 11 p.m. or something like that. Whereas if you don't live in a gated community, well, Mexicans love to party, and a lot of the parties often go late into the night. So you may have a neighbor blaring music until 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. That's something that happens frequently. And it's not one of those things that you can just call the police and have the police come, because they're just going to laugh at you, because that's the culture here. Like, the culture is to party, and it's very normal to have parties that go late into the night. If you drive up and down any residential street in Mexico that isn't in a gated community, you'll typically see high walls in front of the houses, and oftentimes there will be electrified wire on top of the walls, or maybe there's barbed wire. And if you look beyond the gates, a lot of times you'll see metal bars covering all the windows and doors. And this is because people here, especially like middle and upper class, take their security very seriously, because if they don't, they're going to be the victims of a break-in in all likelihood. But if you live in a gated community, you typically don't have those high walls in front of your houses and the electrified fences all over the place. So for me, living in a gated community here in Mexico is much more aesthetically pleasing as well. I'm going to keep going with the reasons why you want to live in a place that has an HOA in Mexico. But before that, I want to say it isn't all rainbows and unicorns and great things. Just like in the US, you can have power-hungry administrators and stupid rules, but it's just that overall in Mexico, there's a lot of other considerations that you may not think of when living in an HOA in the US. The next big reason I'd want to live in a place with an HOA is safety. When talking to people who are thinking about moving to Mexico, they're always concerned about the cartels. And yes, the cartels exist here. However, in your everyday life, it's not much of a concern typically, unless you're in one of a few parts of the country where the cartels are super active and fighting against each other. However, what should be a concern to you is crimes like theft and break-ins. And when you're living in a gated community, they have cameras all around. They have guards monitoring those cameras 24 hours a day. And also they have security gates with guards at the gates as well. And in Mexico, when a thief is looking to break into a house, typically they don't do it inside of a gated community because it's just a much harder target. So safety is one of the biggest reasons why I would choose to live in a gated community in Mexico, because your chances of being a victim of a home invasion are drastically reduced in these communities. Now, this isn't to say that break-ins won't happen or there won't be robberies inside of a gated community. However, when it does happen, it's usually an inside job. Maybe the people who are working at the guard station are in on it. So if you're going on a week vacation and you live in a gated community, maybe it'd be a smart idea not to tell the guards that you're leaving for a week. So use your common sense, use your judgment, and I think you're very unlikely to be a victim of a home invasion if you're living in one of these gated communities that has good security. So with all of this said, that's not to say I wouldn't rent in a place that isn't part of an HOA. However, all else equal, I'm going to choose the one that's part of an HOA in a gated community every single time for the increased levels of safety and the greatly reduced noise.